Hello, hello, welcome. Thanks for tuning into my tiny little YouTube channel. Tiny, tiny little YouTube channel. I appreciate it. This is my little tiny corner of the internet, or maybe it's a circle, but it's definitely small. But it's okay, because I wouldn't know what to make of me if I wasn't me. Mostly here, I cover my oddball dreams, which are often somewhat cosmic in nature. And soon I'll be reading my new book. I thought I might have copies of it on Friday, but I guess the printer's not quite ready yet. So, any day now, we'll start reading chapters from, well, we, meaning me, I'll start reading chapters from Life is Magic, my new book. And I hope you'll tune in to check that out. It's very weird. Um, I think I'm going to try to be proud and say that there is probably no book like it that's ever been published. That's a bold statement to make. It's a little braggy, like, and I don't mean it like that it's the best book that's ever been written, because that's not true. But I think I can honestly say there are a few books like it that have ever been written. Because I'm trying to mix spiritual concepts with a lot of humor and playfulness, and I'm I'm trying to address my my family's experiences with spirit, what we believe to be spirit, supernatural experiences, which is not something I would have ever given credence to when I was young. I didn't believe in it at all. So it's been quite a journey to get here. And I don't have too much more to say about it at the moment, except that I'm trying to be more proud of the fact that it is such a aberrant book, for lack of a better word, such a different book, because the way that most things are sold in the world, like the essence of marketing is to sell you that with which you're already familiar and comfortable, not uncomfortable, with which you're familiar and comfortable, to sell you slight variations on that which you already know and which already fits your expectations and maybe your beliefs. And this book doesn't do any of that. It just exists. It is just an extension of my honest, heartfelt beliefs about the supernatural things that I've seen and experienced, and my family has seen and experienced, as was my first book. And that might limit the audience for it, but that is the art that I guess you could say, destined to make. It seems to follow through in the music that I make too. I I don't I don't give a lot of consideration to how something will be received when I'm creating it. I mean, I would love for tons of people to relate to and be interested in my books and the records that I've made, but I can't go into it thinking like that, because it would be a sort of a betrayal of my own way of seeing things. And the thing we hear a lot from psychics is that, to embrace who you really are and to live in your power, or something like that. To really be who you're meant to be and believe what you're meant to believe, and it doesn't have to be the same as anybody else. And yeah, that can be a very lonely path to take for some when they truly embrace the essence of who they are, because maybe your beliefs don't line up with a lot of other people that you know, or that you work with, or sorry, truck going by. It's kind of loud. I think it's gone. It's going slowly. Where maybe your family, so you get a black sheep syndrome, and you mute your own uniqueness sometimes in deference to other people, or what you think you preemptively censor yourself and your way of wanting to be in the world because you don't want other people to feel uncomfortable with who you are. And yet I also understand there's an etiquette to this world. Um, there's a lot to say on it that I don't really want to get into, but all I'm trying to say is I'm trying to get back to embracing just my own quirkiness and follow whatever I follow and accept that it may or may not reach a lot of people, and that that's entirely okay. It's hard. It's hard sometimes though, because when I pour so much time and energy into creating art, writing books and songs and recording them, and you're pouring, kind of, you really, if you're, not every artist is like this, every artist is different, but if you're pouring bits of your heart and your soul into these things, and you have spent, as I have, like decades trying to refine a craft, like it's not just about it's about trying to make it as powerful and as interesting as it can be. And the more you, the more, I mean, sometimes people regress, but usually the more you do something, you start to achieve a kind of mastery over time. I mean, I've been playing music for more than 30 years, and I keep learning it. The learning never ends. There's always new things to know, and I'm always trying to expand my knowledge and my skills. And I feel the same way about writing. And so when you work so hard to refine what you're doing, you hope that there's an audience for it, but yet you can't think. I don't think it's useful to think about who they might be or what they might want. Hopefully, there are some artists who have said that the personal is the universal, meaning like when you put very personal things into art, you really, even though you're speaking for yourself, you end up speaking for a lot of people because it is so personal that then people can relate, and they relate to maybe the honesty and the vulnerability that you're willing to show as part of the art. And that to me, that's always been the art that's moved me the most. Those are my favorite artists, those kinds of artists. Yet there's sometimes when I feel like my stuff just isn't landing. There's a there's an instinct to hide away maybe a little, or to retreat, and I have to, and I ebb and flow with that feeling of being outward and then in retreat. And it's just sort of something that I am always or often sort of working through, or working around, or however you want to put it. Anyway, that's not even really why I came on. So that really is a tangent. Now I hope you forgive me in that I have a bit of a headache. I think it's from the pollen. Ragweed seems to be kicking in. I did get allergy shots all through the fall and spring, and now I'm monthly to try to immunize myself. And I do think they're helping, but they told me even then that they don't eliminate your symptoms. They can reduce your symptoms. And the thing that I was most hopeful they would help with was singing, that my voice wouldn't be as affected as it was last summer, which was really bad. And I really had trouble performing from about mid-August through, God, like the first frost, November, even December. It was really tough for me to where I was getting to be like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep singing for a while. Yet, with the exception of a few days several weeks ago when we had some of that heavy smoke coming down from the Canadian wildfires, my voice has been pretty good. So, knock on wood, it will continue that way because ragweed season has just started. But I do feel it in my temples today. So forgive me if I ramble a bit or seem to be talking slower than usual. And I'm also a bit tired because I was repainting my bathroom all day yesterday. And I've got a couple more coats to go, but it looks really good and it's long overdue. And it's almost like a canary yellow. It's a really fun yellow. I always wanted a yellow room, and I never had one, so now I have one with white trim. But really, the reason I came on is to tell you a couple nights ago I had yet another just so weird, such a weird dream. It was so far away, and it was like 4 nights in a row that I had dreams. This is the fourth consecutive night from the previous videos that I made about the dreams from last week. And I was listening to Kim Carey's, I think she did it as a live reading yesterday on her channel. Intuitive View is her channel if you are not familiar, but you probably are. And she was talking, what was she talking about? What was the context? Oh, she was talking about when she was in Sedona, Arizona, and how strange her dreams were when she was there, and how she felt like the entire area had a kind of energy to it that was very different from other places. And someone was asking about something related to their home, and maybe it might have been ghosts or it might have been dreams. I don't remember, but I know that what Kim said was that she sensed that the person that was asking about the weird things they were experiencing at their home, she felt that it was a similar energy to what she experienced in Sedona, in that it was, the way she described it was a place that was kind of like an in-between realm. And she didn't elaborate on it, but I knew what she meant, and I think you do too if you're a regular viewer of mine. She said an in-between realm, and I was thinking of it as being like a space that is not entirely of Earth, the Earth dimension, yet also definitely not entirely of the, let's say, the heaven dimension, or what some people call the fifth dimension. A dimension of higher awareness that is said to be without linear time, in which time is sort of either meaningless or moves at the speed of light, as Sterling Psychic Medium says, or is something that you can travel through in both directions. And that's all pretty oddball stuff, right? But my dreams are always dealing with those kinds of things. I have dreams about time travel. I have dreams about things that are impossible and seemingly impossible in this 3D world. I'm always flying in my dreams. I'm always levitating. I was levitating in another dream just another few nights ago too that is not even related to what I'm going to talk about. Like it was just something that was like, yeah, of course we levitate. And when Kim said that she sensed that the person who was asking about events in their own home, and she said that it reminded her of Sedona, Arizona, and that it felt like an in-between realm, it gave me a lot of thoughts. It made me think that a lot of my dreams are like in an in-between realm, or even I myself am kind of walking between two worlds, because that's sort of what is said about Pisces. Pisces is considered the last sign of the zodiac, the 12th house. They say that it's the closest to source, to spirit itself, and that people who are born Pisces are often very, very psychic, and that they kind of have one foot in this world of 3D and one foot in the other world. And I'm beginning to believe that that's kind of where I live. That it comes, and I say this for a lot of reasons. One of them being that the way that I experience music is so strong that it's otherworldly at times. When I'm writing music or hearing music that I love, as I listen to a lot of music that I love over the weekend and while I was painting the bathroom, and I get a lift like from music like that is sort of indescribable. I get a kind of joy from it that is spiritually resonant, and I love the way it feels through my body, and especially when I'm writing and performing. And I had a really good gig Saturday here in the city. I sang very well Saturday, and I was very pleased with my connectivity. When I have days like that or hours like that immersed in music, I do feel connected to spirit and kind of like not entirely on planet Earth anymore. I feel like I'm in an in-between realm. And that in-between realm is very, very beautiful and very, very calming and resonant and strong. And it is like it resets everything about me. And I know that it does for others. And maybe you get there in different ways. You might get there through meditation or Reiki or massage or whatever. Maybe you smoke a joint and you go there. Everybody's got different ways of getting high, but there's different kinds of highs too. Like I can certainly feel euphoria when I drink whiskey, which I love. But this is a kind of joy that doesn't require it, and it will give me chills, and it will give me a feeling like of well-being and certainty and just pure joy, really. So I was getting that kind of feeling even when I was painting yesterday, and I was listening to a couple of different records that I just love. One that I hadn't really ever heard before by an artist that you probably have not heard of, named Mimi Gazy. Mimi Gazy, it's like Goese is her last name, and she did a record with a trumpet player whose name I forget, Ben something, and it's called Persephone. And it's kind of a mysterious record, and I just it made me feel dreamy while I was painting. Really put me in a nice space. And then, by high contrast, I was listening to a record by a hip hop artist that I really like that came out at least 10 years ago. The artist's name is Q-Tip. The record is called The Renaissance, and I really like the way that he integrates jazz and other unusual influences into his hip hop. It moved me much when it came out. It really influenced me, and some of the writing that I did after that was influenced by it music writing, and it still resonates for me. But anyway, I keep delaying talking about this dream that I was going to tell you about. It's only been 18 minutes and I still haven't gotten to the point. But whatever, you watch or you don't watch, I get it. So this is all kind of to set up yet another spacey dream. Very, very atmospheric and resonant dream, and reflecting on what Kim was talking about in between spaces. I was thinking about how I've heard before that Buffalo, where I live, is like on a major ley line, but I don't know much about ley lines to tell you more about them. They have been giving ghost tours about my neighborhood for as long as I've lived here. You'll hear the walking tours in my neighborhood. I had a chapter about it in my first book, how I was laughing because they were including like every house around me but my own. So I was tempted to yell out from the porch, hey, I got some stories for you, but I didn't. And my house isn't haunted per se. It's just that actually my house isn't haunted at all, and nor would I want it to be. But what I mean is that my own personal connectivity is pretty strong at times, and so is my neighbor Rose. She's definitely psychic, and she features in my next book, and will feature in the book after that too. And we have spiritual discussions sometimes that are pretty interesting and pretty spacey. So it could be a combination of many things why I have these kinds of dreams. Being Pisces, living where I live, who knows? I'm not going to unravel every single mystery or navel gaze too much about it. But let me tell you about this dream now. So naturally, as I have been doing, and since it was 4 days running, it kind of became a running joke between me and my mom that I would have a crazy dream and then I would text her about it in the morning when I woke up, because if I write down enough about it in the morning when I've had it, then I'll remember more later too when I reread it. So as I read you the text that I sent to her, I'll probably interject because it'll give me more ideas. It'll give me I'll remember the dream better. Oops, what happened here? Oh, come now. Okay, so I wrote, oh my God, I can't even tell you how wild my dreams were again. Off the chart strange. First, I was at an interactive concert, like a music concert, where they were somehow projecting imagery and light and objects around us in every direction. It was totally cosmic and mind-blowing. Indescribable, really. Or like watching whole realms being created in front of our eyes and kind of being one with it too. So I'll pause there. There's more to the text. Yeah, there's just like no way I can even begin to tell you. But it was like, so I was seated in an auditorium. I'd say it was like maybe like a theater where you might see a Broadway play. It was like 2,000, 2,500 people kind of thing. But the thing was, it was entirely dark, and the entire show took place everywhere. We weren't just looking at a stage. It was above us and around us and surrounded us, and at times it seemed to like overtake us. Like I said in the beginning of the text, like we started to almost kind of merge with the show. And the show was like both colorful and it was mostly a lot of light and color. I don't remember any sound specifically, but I remember like just seeing what seemed like millions of orbs of all sizes, all packed tightly together, sort of like whizzing overhead, swirling and whizzing overhead. They might have even been a little metallic, but they kind of like all washed past us, and as they washed above and around us, then you really felt like you were immersed in them. It was strange. It felt like something was being created, like it felt like a reality was maybe being created out of basic geometric shapes. The wave of orbs, I mean millions, then kind of like they all kind of like a wave of dark came across them. It's like they were all seen and then they all kind of like disappeared, as if the scene was being reset, excuse me, and then more shapes would swirl around. And it was like watching, like I said, it was kind of like being in the mind of the creator or something, or seeing how the creator creates things from the building blocks of matter. Like it was almost like watching bubbles of oxygen in water in another sense, except that it didn't look like fluid. It looked more like shiny, metallic, or glowing balls. And so this continued for some time, and it was wild. And like I said, like there was a point at which I kind of looked over and I could see that all the audience was in silhouette around me. You know what I mean? Like I could only see the shapes of people's heads and chairs around me. So I had no sense of who else was there. and what they were feeling, but everybody was enraptured. And so that led to the next part of the dream, which I'll read. So when the main show was kind of over, the audience was invited to play games in pairs to create seemingly our own environments to see how life would evolve on them, but at super fast speed, like watching a movie at like 10 times or 20 or 100 times the normal speed. And I was with my cousin Chris, and in our two environments, which were side by side, as I was watching them, we these dinosaur-like creatures evolved up from bugs and bacteria and snakes and other things, but it was like watching evolution take place, like maybe 1,000,000 years of evolution take place in seconds. I saw like I saw kind of like a patch of grass, and then I saw like just like miniature life forms, like little bugs and insects, and then it was like they kind of swirled around each other and interacted, and then like snakes kind of evolved from them, and then like lizards, and then like bigger life forms kept emerging from the soup of interactions until these larger animals were birthed. And it was all sort of pastoral, and it was like viewing it was like viewing a patch of the earth, but it was contained in a box, not a whole hell of a lot bigger than a shoebox, maybe twice as big as a shoebox, like 2 shoeboxes. So my little environment is generating over here, and my cousin Chris's is generating over here. And my cousin Chris, I wish he lived in the area. He lives in Seattle. He used to live in Pennsylvania when we were young, and he is the son of my mom's next oldest sister. So, and my mom has 4 older sisters. My mom is the youngest. So my Aunt Anne is the second youngest, and so Chris and I were almost the same age by within a year. And when we were kids, and they would come to Buffalo to visit, and we would go to Dunmore, PA, outside of, I think, Scranton, to visit them. We had a shared love of superheroes and fantasy, and playing with, plastic swords and Star Wars and Ninja Stars, and we must have played Missile Command on the Atari for hours and days. And was it Galaga? Not Galaga. Yar's Revenge was a game on the Atari 2600 that we just played endlessly. And we would make up stories and record comedic tapes, like cassette tapes of these stories that we made up. Like Chris kind of gravitated a little more towards the Japanese stuff and the more technical side of sci-fi. Like he liked Shogun Warriors, which was these robots that were kind of like Transformers. So then, of course, he liked Transformers, the cartoon Transformers, where they're aliens, but they can transform into cars and trucks and, different kinds of vehicles or planes and things. And the Transformers are a very successful movie franchise now. But of course, when we were kids, it was just a cartoon and a comic book, and the toys. Of course, the toys was the big thing. And so like on one cassette tape, like one of our jokes was the Franceformers, like the country of France. So like we did the whole tape of skits in with their crappy French accents at the age of 13. The Franceformers, just being goofballs. So I always felt a lot of kinship with Chris. And when he got out of school, he moved out of Pennsylvania pretty quickly. He went to the West Coast. So we've only seen each other a few times in the interim, which is a shame. And we should probably do something about it. But you know how time and distance, you can drift from people, even people that you really feel close to. But we did have a really great kinship, and I feel so fondly about those years that we spent together, and all the fun we had as kids. So I didn't expect to see him in a dream. I may have to tell him about this dream. I don't know if he has any inclination towards any of this kind of oddball spirit stuff that I'm into. But I know that he still likes sci-fi stuff and likes to go to comic book conventions and things like that with his girlfriend, who I think she writes like science fiction. So he found the right person to be with, which I'm glad for. But to go back to the dream, so Chris and I in the dream, we were able to create our own environments. And it was, like I said, it was like watching evolution take place, millions of years, or at least hundreds of thousands of years of evolution take place in just minutes, seconds, really. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, that followed from the dream I had, from the portion of the dream in which I was sort of like watching things being created in that theater. So it fit the theme. It was like creation was demonstrated to us, and then we were getting to try it too. And as Chris and I watched our environments grow, we jumped into the environments. We, instead of just observing them, we each became like a dinosaur, and we sort of playfully fought in our two environments, and like each was trying to take over and sort of absorb the other person's environment. And the environments were so fluid that it was kind of like when I attacked him, I would absorb some of his environment, like take it upon myself, and then when he would retaliate, he would absorb some of my environment and make it a part of him and expand himself. So like competitive play. And which was interesting. And then we went from being in the environments to, excuse me, I think we were kind of kids or young teens in this dream. The two of us were running down the street together, sort of chasing each other. And we both had kind of like energy in our hands. Like energy balls, it seemed, for lack of a better description. And I was just a little ahead of him. I was running just a little bit faster than him, and I was kind of teasing him with my energy ball. Like I was holding it in the air, like, you can't get it. And he was trying to get it, and I was trying to get his. And we were running and having so much fun and running so fast that then we sort of then began to like, I don't know if we traveled through time, but we were running faster than any human could run. It went from being two kids running down the street to being like a cartoon superhero, like the Flash, like super speed, even with the streaks behind us, you know. And it's hard to say, but I feel like our streaks may have been purple and blue, which I get a lot in dreams. Purple and blue. And it was like then we suddenly kind of became aware that we were crossing into, well, we had already been in a supernatural sort of territory in creating the environments with the dinosaurs and everything, watching evolution. But now we were together, sort of speeding through time, or at least exceeding the bounds of any normal human ability. And it's just so interesting that it's Chris, because we used to draw comic books together when we were kids too. We were just always like similarly creative. We really got on, especially when we were young. And so I wrote to my mom, we ran so fast we broke a speed barrier, and then we just kept going beyond normal possibility. And then we started to run up in the air in circles together. We were running so fast that we just started to lift off the ground. And there was a tunnel filled with what looked like stacks of circular batteries. Almost like, they kind of look like, they look like upside down ice cubes. That's what they look like. They look like upside down ice cubes stacked on top of each other in rows and in a tunnel that was heading upward. And they were probably white. And there was a tunnel filled with what looked like stacks of circular batteries. As we ran up the tunnel, we started to absorb some of the batteries, and we started to become something much more than human, something more cosmic. And I distinctly remember, like, going from sort of like running in the air to like hitting the tunnel, and then like looping in the tunnel and running up the tunnel, and seeing these batteries sort of like a battery wall kind of growing up the tunnel, and then some of them becoming part of us. So it was sort of evolving at the same time. And as we were absorbing, it was almost like we were absorbing, not that they were batteries, but that they were knowledge, that they were cosmic knowledge. Like we were kind of starting to transcend. We were going from being human to being something more than human, something superhuman, something mysterious and bigger than human. And as we started to absorb like the knowledge of, within this vortex represented by these sort of batteries, we realized that if we kept going up the tunnel, we might not be human enough to relate to anyone we knew and loved anymore at a certain point, because we were changing so fast. We would be transformed and too different than regular people, yet as we became more godlike. But there was some appeal to that. There was some excitement to that. But it was, but we felt ambivalence too. We couldn't decide what to do. And I don't remember, I felt like somehow Chris and I were then sort of attached. I don't mean literally attached, but it was almost like there was like an unseen energetic ribbon between us. Okay, let's just say that. Okay. And that as we went up the tunnel, we were also balancing each other off, such that if he, like, it kept us connected, and it kept us sort of stable within the tunnel by being connected to one another. And Chris decided to let go when we were maybe a fifth of the way up this tunnel that was going up into the sky. And when he dropped off, like he decided, okay, I'm not going to participate in this anymore. But he didn't say anything to me in advance or call out to me. He just let go. Or maybe he was trying to call out to me and I couldn't hear him or whatever. But when he let go, is when I realized that I had been connected to him, and that being connected to him was helping me kind of like maintain my balance in the tunnel. And that when he dropped off, it was almost like without his weight to counterbalance me, I got a little more stuck in the tunnel than I had been before. And so I wrote, without him there to help balance me off, I was stuck in the vortex and couldn't drop out. I could see down through the open bottom in the air where he had dropped through back towards the earth, and I was calling out to Chris for help when the dream ended. So I didn't make it out of the tunnel before the dream ended, and I don't know what to make of it, but it all seems tied to everything I've talked about, maybe in a circular way, being in between realms. The possibilities, I think the possibilities are there for greater knowledge of the mysteries of life. But perhaps what the dream is saying is that it's a mixed blessing, if you will. If you have enough in, sort of whatever psychic aptitude, or if you can walk between worlds, that you also have to be a little careful, because we're still living a life on 3D Earth, a physical realm, and if you perhaps if it's tailored specifically to me, if I have too much attraction to the mysterious and the esoteric and the magical, that there's a danger of separating from the more concrete world. And I can feel that in my everyday life, because I get very excited by high creativity and wild creative ideas and artistic projects that are really pushing the boundaries of things. And as I said, my new book pushes the boundaries of lots of ideas, and some people may really like it and really relate to it, and some people may not get past the first page. But it's neither good nor bad. It's just kind of what is. But in the dream, at least, it was kind of like saying, think a little bit about how far down, these roads of mystery you want to go, in case, because you don't want to get stuck in a tunnel, the knowledge tunnel that takes you away from other people entirely. And sometimes and that makes me wonder, just sort of offhandedly, if that's a little more like what it's like for people who are on the autism spectrum, where I have, from my interaction with some from this channel, people have said that their experience of life is very different than the normal person's, that it's almost like being the observer of your life and the person and the one experiencing your life at the same time, which is something that a lot of mystics and spiritual shaman types say too, that and Buddhists as well, like about stepping outside your ego to where you view your life with maybe even a little bit of detachment, to where you see yourself as like kind of a person in a story, and not always like from the very personal idea of me, my life, like, and that's a subject for another day, as far as what is a healthy or appropriate balance between having an ego and exerting oneself in the world in an appropriate way, and others who choose to be so selfless and somewhat almost detached from their lives that they almost really barely exist as an individual. They become somewhat selfless, to a degree that their ego really falls away entirely. Now it's starting to feel a little rambly. I feel like I just took the one bite more than I could chew with that last thing, so I'm going to stop there. But it was a really interesting dream, it is telling me something that I think I communicated hopefully well enough as to what I think the theme may be there. It'll be interesting to see where it goes from there, especially in light of my book arriving any day. Because anything could happen with this book, as with the last book. I mean, it could be read by 10 people, 100 people, or who knows. But it's definitely a push. It's definitely not your everyday thing, and that will appeal to some and less so to others, which is just fine. So, if you made it through to the end of this one, whew, thank you, because it's quite a thing. I will say, in parting, that I remember that I registered my book on August 8th, so 8/8 of 2023, this month, because I had read that that was the Lionsgate portal, and maybe there might be some nice juju, new energy coming to the world attached to that, and that was a week in which I thought the energy on Earth was just bonkers. It was all weirdo stuff connected to our current ongoing political drama here in the United States, and I thought that the whole week was just weird. I didn't like the feeling that was going on at all. Really was having trouble extracting myself from that energy. And then by the beginning of the next week, it started to swing upward again, and continues now into the beginning of this week, to where I feel like 8/8 was almost like a peak of some bad juju related to the former president and his allegedly criminal co-conspirators. But if this energy continues on the trajectory that as I feel it now, he's pretty peaked out, and you can kind of see it and feel it in the media, and even in some of the conservative media. You can feel the knives sharpening, and hopefully we're witnessing the beginning of the end of this type of energy, or the dominance of this type of energy in this country and in the world now. Maybe the upper hand is finally with the light, and with the hope, and with the selfless and the loving people, because we could all use a big dose of hope for the future, because there will be inevitable challenges, great existential challenges to come, especially climate change. And it's like we need to get past what feels like old, stale, toxic male energy, which also was a theme of some of my dreams that week that I related in the last few videos, if you caught them. And if you didn't, you're certainly welcome to go back. All of this to say, I think things are on the upswing, even though it's going to be slow. It's going to take some time, but it feels like things are starting to turn a corner, and I certainly hope that feeling continues. And that's where I'll leave it. So, as always, your comments are welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe if you like. And I hope you're well. I hope things are good in your world. And I look forward to your comments. See you next time. Take care. Bye.